Before we begin, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt something you knew you weren't supposed to feel? Not planned, not invited, just there. The kind of feeling that quietly slips in, and suddenly nothing feels as simple as it used to. If you enjoy stories that explore the complicated side of human emotions, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We uncover the moments people don't talk about. Now let me tell you mine. When I first met Daniel, he was nothing more than my husband's colleague. At least, that's what he was supposed to be. He worked with Mark at a firm downtown. The kind of place you only see in polished magazines or through glass windows as you pass by. Everything there looked precise, controlled, successful. Glass walls, sharp suits, confident voices. People who measured their lives in promotions, deadlines, and late-night emails. Mark talked about him sometimes. Always casually. Always in passing. Daniel handled that client perfectly. Daniel's the only one who stays calm when everything falls apart. To me, he was just a name. Another one of those faceless people who existed in my husband's world, but not in mine. The kind of men who showed up at office parties, shook hands a little too firmly, laughed a little too loudly, and left without leaving any real impression. At least, that's what I thought. Until that Friday evening. Mark had insisted on hosting a dinner. A small one, he said. Just a few colleagues. Simple. But I knew better. These dinners were never simple. They were performances. And I was expected to play my part perfectly. The attentive wife. The charming hostess. The woman who smiled at the right moments, nodded at conversations she didn't care about, and made everything look effortless. Even when it wasn't. Still, I did what I always did. I prepared. I set the table with our best china. Lit candles that cast a soft, flattering glow across the room. Poured wine into crystal glasses that caught the light just enough to feel elegant. I chose a simple black dress. Nothing too bold. Nothing too noticeable. Just enough to look refined. That was the intention. Daniel was the first to arrive. I remember the exact moment I opened the door. Because something about it stayed with me. He stood there, framed by the dim light outside. Rain still clinging faintly to his coat. But it wasn't his presence that caught me off guard. It was his eyes. Green. Not just bright, but intense. The kind of eyes that didn't just look at you. They studied you. As if they were searching for something. As if they were already noticing things you hadn't said yet. "Hi, you must be Emily," he said, offering his hand. His voice was calm. Warm. Effortless. "Yes, and you're Daniel," I replied, placing my hand in his. His grip was firm. Confident. But that wasn't what lingered. It was the way he looked at me. Like I wasn't just part of the room. Like I wasn't just someone's wife hosting a dinner. Like I was being seen. The evening unfolded the way these evenings always do. Guests arrived. Laughter filled the space. Glasses clinked. Conversations overlapped. Mark moved through the room like he belonged to it. Charismatic, animated, completely at ease. And I did what I always did. I moved quietly between people. Refilling drinks. Serving food. Smiling at the right moments. Playing my role. But something was different. Because every so often, without meaning to, I found myself looking at him. And every time I did, he was already looking at me. Not in an obvious way. Not in a way anyone else would notice. Just small glances. Brief. But just long enough to feel intentional. I told myself it meant nothing. That I was imagining it. That he was just being polite. That this was nothing more than coincidence. But somewhere deep inside, something stirred. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. By the time dessert was served, the air felt different. Charged. Not visibly. Not loudly. But quietly, beneath everything else. It showed up in the smallest moments. The brush of hands when I passed him a glass. The slight pause before he spoke to me. The way his smile shifted, just slightly, when our eyes met across the table. It wasn't inappropriate. It wasn't obvious. But it was there. And I felt it. Eventually, the night came to an end. Chairs moved. Coats were gathered. Goodbyes were exchanged near the door. Mark was busy, caught up in conversation with someone else. And for a moment, it was just me and Daniel, standing there, in the quiet space between noise. "The dinner was wonderful," he said softly. "You really have a way of making people feel comfortable." "Thank you," I replied. But my voice felt different, quieter than I intended. And then, it happened. That moment. That look. It wasn't just a glance anymore. It was something else. Something unspoken, but understood. His eyes held mine. Steady. Unmoving. And in that silence, it felt like everything we hadn't said all evening was suddenly there. Clear. Undeniable. For a second, everything else faded. The voices. The laughter. Even Mark's presence somewhere behind us. It all disappeared. And there was only that moment. Suspended. Fragile. Dangerous. Then just like that, it was gone. He stepped back. Gave a polite nod. "Good night, Emily." And walked out into the night. The door closed. But the moment didn't. It stayed. It followed me into the kitchen as I washed the dishes. It lingered as Mark talked about work, unaware of anything that had passed. It stayed with me as I lay in bed later that night, staring at the ceiling, unable to quiet my thoughts. Because what I felt in that moment wasn't simple. It wasn't harmless. It wasn't something I could just ignore. It was something deeper. Something I hadn't felt in years. Something I didn't expect and didn't know what to do with. It was dangerous. It was unfamiliar. And somehow, it was impossible to forget. If this story made you feel something, if you've ever experienced a moment you couldn't explain, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes, the most powerful stories are the ones we never meant to be part of.